Welcome to another edition of the Basketball Teacher Podcast. Our mission is to bring you discussions on a wide array of topics in the coaching world to grow players on and off the court. You can connect with us on YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter, and also reach us directly through email at basketballteacherpodcast@gmail.com. Now, here's your host, Coach Mike Hernandez.
Welcome back, everyone. Thank you so much again for joining us here for another episode. As always, thanks for all the support and the great feedback that you leave the show, that you leave on our social media, the messages that you send us. Really appreciate it. Always love reading those. Keep those coming. It's been great to see. Today's episode is one that a few people have asked about maximizing player effort and getting the most out of the players on your team. Any coach knows, especially at the high school and collegiate level, get them for 4 years. It seems like they walk in the door as freshmen, and then a week later, they're graduating seniors. And I know for me as a coach, and I know many coaches listening, want to make sure that we maximize the player effort. We want to make sure that we get the most out of that player, so that player gets the most out of their high school experience, college experience, whatever the case may be. So we're going to dedicate today's episode about maximizing player effort and getting the most out of the players that you have on your team. So joining me today is head boys basketball coach at Melbourne High School, who's going to share his experience and also share what he's done to get the most out of his players. I'm very happy to be joined today by Coach Scott Bowlin. Coach, thanks for joining us. How are you today?
Oh, I'm doing great, Coach. I appreciate you asking me to be on, and any little tidbit that I can put out there and help somebody, I'm always glad to do that.
Love it. I really appreciate you doing this. And as we just talked about before we recorded, is that you've been through the gamut, you've been through a lot. So, Coach, where has your coaching journey taken you? Where has the game taken you? And where are you currently at right now?
You know, I started a long time ago. I started 38 years ago. I just finished my 38th year, and I started at a little place called Noble, Arkansas, with 138 kids, K through 12, and probably the best job I've ever had. As far as your first job is always special, and even though I had 6 players on my first team, I felt like that my job was as good as UCLA or anybody else. And, that's how I approached it. And basketball's taken me to a lot of great places, and it's allowed me to meet a lot of great people. And, just so thankful for that. But I started 38 years ago in a little place called Noble, Arkansas, which they don't even have a school anymore. I was there, and then I've been in Southeast Missouri in the Boot Heel. And it took me to West Tennessee. I was there for 6 or 7 years, and I came back to Northeast Arkansas to my school, my high school, my home school that I graduated from. I just recently have been at Harbor High School in Springdale, which is in the 7A level. And 2 years ago, I needed a change. My parents are both still alive, thank God, and needed to get closer to them. I was about 5.5 hours away. And so I'm in North Central Arkansas. I'm at a 2A school, happy as a pig laying in the sunshine, and just thankful that I'm still able to teach the game that I love.
No, that's great. And so many different experiences that you've had, and such a unique thing about coaching at a school that isn't even there anymore. That's quite crazy there. So a lot of experience that you have to share. And with that experience, one of the things that you've had as a coach is you've coached a lot of teams that have made a lot of deep runs in state and in the finals. I know, I believe it's like a 3-time state finalist, multiple, I think 7 Final Fours. So I wanted to ask you about, that having those sort of teams that have had that level of success as a coach. When do you know that you have like a special team? When you were coaching those teams, when did you know that, okay, we got something really special here?
Well, I've always said, I've always been a guy coach that has always walked into a place and had to build. I've never been one of those guys that chased the talent. I always chased the job that I felt like was the best fit for me. And there's nothing wrong with chasing talent if that's what you want to do. but I've always felt like I'm a builder of programs. I'm a builder of men. And that's something that I've always enjoyed. Could I probably stayed and had some success more than what I have? Sure, I could. But I just think that, I think it's a calling, whatever it is that you do in your life. I think that I was very fortunate. I was raised by a coach. My father coached 39 years. He's in the Hall of Fame of coaches here in Arkansas. So, it's kind of like it's sort of been bred in me. And I've watched him and his success, and I've been very fortunate to have some success myself. But, the thing that you ask is, what was that one ingredient that I felt like that every team had? And, in order to say that, I have to say this: when you're building a program, you have to start from the ground up, and you have to lay the foundation, and the foundation has got to be based on your core beliefs, whatever those core beliefs are. And I believe that ours is discipline and doing the right thing and being very consistent in what we do. I'm not one of those guys that jumps around and tries different things, especially defensively. We have a core base of what we're going to do, and everybody that plays this knows that when they come in, they're going to be locked up, and hopefully, we're successful at the end. But I think one of the key things is you've got to instill in them that it can happen. And today's kids 10 years ago, 15 years ago, you can't fool these guys. They play AAU, and they play year round, a lot of them. So I think the one thing that we've tried to do with them is to be very honest and be upfront with them and give them the expectation. And I think if you show them that the expectation can be achieved, that you have a better opportunity to get more people on board. And, you're always going to have that one or two that's going to walk in, and they're going to be, believing whatever you say. But you got to have a large number of guys to buy in. And I think one of the things that you have to have in the early part of your program when you're building one is you have to have that signature win. And, it may not be some state champion that you beat that wins it eventually, but it's somebody that maybe is supposed to beat you, or they've been beating the school that you're at for several times in a row. And I was at Greene County Tech, and I had taken a program. They'd won 38 games in the 10 years before I got there. And, I knew they had good talent. I knew they had talent coming. And my third year there, we were climbing the mountain, and we played the number one ranked team in the state. And we shot 73% the night that we beat them, and beat them 1 point. And, you think, wow, yeah, you think you would beat somebody pretty handily, but we didn't. But, it wasn't the point of how bad we beat them. It was the point was that we beat them.
Sure.
And, the power of positivity, it can take you a long ways. And I've had to learn that through the years. But I think the thing that I've been able to do is to get kids, and I've always said this, I've been able to make ordinary players believe that they could do extraordinary things. And I think that's through perseverance. I think it's through relationships outside the floor. Kids nowadays, they want instant gratification. But getting back to your question is they just got to buy in to what you're doing, and you have to be very consistent with that. That's something that you have to do every day. And I tell our players now, how are you, what you are in front of people and what you are in front of nobody when the gym it's hotter than heck in July. That's when you really find out who you are. And when it's easy to be happy and all that when things are going well, but I want that guy that when it's not going good, I want to be able to get what I call getting that foxhole with him. Yeah. And when you can get those guys, and when you can get people believing that they can do things that maybe they didn't think they could do. I think that, so to get back to your question, I believe that they just end up believing that they can do something that maybe in the past they didn't think they could do.
And I think that idea of getting them to believe in something that maybe they didn't previously believe in, I think that just perfectly ties into the idea of maximizing player effort, because you have to get them to a point, you have to max them out to a point where, perhaps they didn't even realize they themselves could even get to. So I think that ties in really well. Now, I think every coach will tell you, like, oh, we want to get maximum effort out of our players. And I think to an extent, maybe each coach kind of has its own definition of what that looks like. So let's start there, Coach. When you think of a player giving maximum effort for your team, what does that look like to you?
And there's so many cliches anymore in social media and television. First of all, I think I'm not for sure how many people, Coach, can truly really rationalize maximum effort. It's so easy to overlook fake effort. And I really believe that's kind of a God-given deal. I really do. I just know anymore when a kid's giving me all they got. But an example of fake effort is dive on the floor and the ball's 4 feet out in front of you, diving in useless energy. I call it useless energy. I think maximum effort, you're seeing results. I think that's the definition for me of someone giving max effort. And that's playing through screens. A lot of times now I see kids, when they get screened, they quit playing just for that brief moment, or they'll relax. And, I want to see guys helping and doing things that maybe it puts a little bit more on them than normal. I don't like kids to be comfortable when they're out there playing.
Yeah.
And the only way that you can get kids to play in an uncomfortable situation, and it goes back to what we said earlier, it's about relationships. Those guys got to know that you got their back. And, I can't continually to express to you and whoever is listening to this podcast that it's about relationships off the floor. On the floor, coaches are going to do their thing. But, so many times, and I fell into this when I was being super successful with state tournaments, final championships, every game, there for a brief moment, I kind of thought it was about me. And when I started thinking that it was about me, I started to fail, because I quit really rationalizing and looking at the real purpose and the real reason. And the reason and the purpose was those kids. And when you lose sight of that, you kind of lose sight of what you're there for. And, I've just, like I said, is there a formula to recognize fake effort? For me, there is. It's about playing through things. It's about picking paper up off the bench when you're leaving. Those things. Now, well, how does that relate to fake effort? Well, or effort. And effort is doing something beyond your comfortable ability. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
We talk about playing uncomfortable all the time. And our practices are very intense. We have no out of bounds in practice. There's no out of bounds. The ball can go up in the bleachers, and so they know that max effort is all the time. There is not a time in practice that you can relax. They can't sit down. They can't shoot the bull with a guy beside them. We're talking about, when we talk to one, we're talking to all. And I may recognize something that's going on, and I may call that kid out and put him out on the floor and tell him that we need him to do something. So you know, if they know that they have to be on their toes all the time, they're going to give you back what you give them. And you have to be very consistent with recognizing maximum effort and fake effort. It's body language is something that I'm very conscious of during practice. I'm very conscious of what happens when a kid gets knocked on the floor. You know, we are big on going and getting our guys up and going and doing some things that may be over the top, but those all to me play into me as a coach and as our coaching staff is to recognize effort. Is those things.
Yeah, I think that I like the idea of, the idea of like fake effort and also the idea of just going out of your comfort zone. Because I think one of the things that I know a lot of coaches, they always are thinking about is whether or not that player could have done more. Maybe they do give good effort, but is it really what their maximum effort is? And that comes to making kids maybe uncomfortable, pushing them to a point where like they're not used to being pushed. And so when players are going into your program, do you need to, I guess for a lack of a better term, do you need to kind of like get them to that point? Do you need to like have that like, hey, this is what it takes to be playing for my team? Like, does that need to kind of be spelled out for them, or do like the other players kind of show them the way? What's that like?
I think it's a combination of both, actually. Like I said earlier, you're going to have one or two that's going to buy in pretty quick. I think to get maximum effort out of kids, you have to be very consistent in practice. Me, I'm very vocal. I'm energetic. I'm 60-year-old now, but I can assure you that my energy level is better than 90% of the guys younger than me, because I have that will to succeed. And I want to see our players succeed. So you got to be consistent every day in practice on what you want out of them. You know, if I come in one day and I'm going after them and they're going after it, and the next day I back off of them, well, then that kind of confuses them on, okay, what is he really, is coach really wanting us to give maximum effort today, or is he wanting to just slide by and get out? Well, I'm not a slide by guy. We're going to come out there and we're going to get after it. So I think you have to be very consistent. And once you are consistent in practice every day, then the maximizing your kids becomes easier for them as well. It's a habit. Getting max performance is a habit.
To follow up with that, to pivot a little bit, because I can tell just because of the way that you describe your program and the way that you coach, I mean, that same effort is expected out of yourself. You expect that level of effort out of yourself. For a coach, what do you think that looks like? Maximum like coach effort? Is there a thing as like fake effort as a coach? What do you think about a coach's responsibility, what their effort level should be looking like?
Well, I think, again, there's a lot of different degrees in coaching. You know, there's some guys that possibly get into it because they feel like you can make good money. I don't know if I know anyone like that, but to me, I'm always trying to give back as much as of my knowledge and my energy and the things that I have learned to our players. And it's not just about then, it's about later on. I want them to maximize themselves when they get out here and become a husband and a work in the workplace. There's a lot of different things that I have picked up, and it's not always the truth, or it's not always the way it appears. And this is kind of off the wall deal, but when I shake a coach's hand, if he don't really grasp my hand and let me know he's there, then I like my chances. I'm not for sure when it gets down in the last minute and a half, can he make that decision to maybe it may not be the most favorite decision that he made that night, but he made the right decision. I think that sometimes coaches want to talk above the kids' heads, and to me, the kid, when kids hear that, they're thinking, does this guy really know what's going on? I think there are ways that you can fake kids out for sure, but I think you have to be very consistent in whatever it is that you do, whether it be in practice. Kids got to know when they come in there, they better strap it up because it's fixing to get crazy in here, and they do. I'm a high impact guy, and I rub kids the wrong way when I first get there, maybe sometimes, but when I get to know them and they get to know me, they know that I am who I say I am, and I'm going to do what I'm going to say I'm going to do. And it just kind of springboards from there, I just think you have to treat them, everybody you can't treat the same. That's something that through the years I have learned. You have to figure out what each player motivates them. Some you can really rail on and get after, and then that good one may not like that. So you have to figure out what motivates him. And same way with assistant coaches. What motivate? What's your why are you here? What do you want out of this? And I think that coaching is something now that has never been before. We wear so many hats.
Sure.
The X's and O's for me, when I get on the floor, is the easiest thing. It's being a counselor and a mom and a dad and someone who is leading young men, and it's a full-time job. It's a full-time job, and I know I've sort of rattled around, but I think everything that I've talked about encompasses what fake effort is and maximum effort is. Mm-hmm. All these things that I've sort of hit on.
Yeah. No, and you've mentioned a couple times about referencing kind of like what your practices look like, and I think that those in particular can really set the tone for the players, but also in the same side, kind of really set the tone as a coach about that coach giving maximum effort in their practice plan, or the way that they sort of conduct their practices can also tell you a lot about a coach. So you mentioned a couple things about like the no out of bounds and about the players not really having that much room to make any side conversation or anything like that. And so for a coach who wants to get maximum effort out of their players, what would you suggest that they do in order to build like a maximum effort practice?
Well, I think it goes back that you've got to, I'm not going to say make it fun, but you've got to make it high energy. You've got to do competition stuff. I'm not a coach that we don't do a lot of scrimmaging, but I do more now than I ever have in my career, just because of the type of kids that we have nowadays. They all play AAU and all that. But I think that your practice schedule has got to be high impact, bam, go from one to the other. And what I call, like the football guys call it, I want to play fast. I want to practice fast. I want high impact. I don't want people jogging around. I want managers getting me balls, this getting into it. And we try to go about 90 minutes, 120 minutes, but you feel like you've been in there 4 hours, but I think when you keep that type of high impact practice going, I think it becomes a habit, and you see less fake effort because they know what real effort is eventually, and they'll call each other out. There's always a consequence for something that goes on, whether it be good or bad. but you've got to make the practice competitive. You've got to make it fast. And when I say fast, I don't mean per se as just, going from defensive one drill to the other drill. I mean, a lot of times there has to be, some type of breakdown stuff and you're teaching, but there has to be not enough time for them to get comfortable. And, even when they know at our practice, when they get a water break, there is no, what do we do now, coach? They know. They go right to the foul line. We have a 3-man shooting where they're shooting, one's running, one's rebounding, and then they flip it. So, I mean, we're just going from one to another. And that helps create a energy level that very few people really see. I'll give you an example.
Sure.
We were down 18 in the regional quarterfinals we were down 18 with 2 minutes and 18 seconds left in the regional semifinals. We won the game with 0.4 seconds left. I had no timeouts, and my best player had broke his leg. And I really want to go into the fact that because of the way we practice, because of the relationships that we have, and because of the beliefs that they have in us and we have in them, they never quit. And some a sports writer asked me if I'd ever seen anything like that. I said, "Are you kidding me? What you just witnessed, you may never witness again." We hit 6 threes in 2 minutes and 18 seconds. That's hard to do. So I think that was all created, Coach, because of the way we practice, because of the expectations of maximum effort. There's no time for fake effort.
It sounds like, in a way, the games are the easy part, Coach. It's the practices that are the ones that are gonna really test your players. And it's almost like to the point where, the games, I can do this. I know how hard I've been working at practice, given everything I got. The game is the easy part, almost, in a way.
Well, I think if you talk to any of the guys that's played for me, I think they would tell you that.
Yeah.
I don't want to come off and sound like I'm some no fun. I mean, we play music the first 20 minutes of our practice, which is something I'd never done up until about 5 or 6 years ago. But they know when it's time. And now I've been here 2 years. The expectations are high, and they know what they need to do to get to where they want to go.
Sure. That's great. And I think that when they're used to just getting after it in practice all the time, there's no switch that needs to be flipped for a game. I mean, come game time, they're ready to go. So that's really good. Coach, I know that some coaches kind of struggle a little bit with a player comes into the program. They think that, that they got it figured out. They think that, they're doing their AAU, they're doing club. They think that they got the game ready to go, maybe got a bit of an ego. For coaches who might have players like that, where, they got to kind of break them down a little bit and then sort of rebuild them into the player that they can actually become. What advice would you give for a coach who might be going through a situation like that?
I think that again, it's you're going to have to do a lot of one-on-one communicating with him. Put the ball in his court, sort of say, from what are his goals, what are his expectations, what are his needs, and with all that being said, with every give there's a take, and then I think you have to relay to him what you expect from him. And I've had those situations. I got a kid right now that's leading the nation in JUCO and 3-point shooting, one of the best players I've ever been around. But, he wasn't a self-motivated guy in practice. He was one of those guys that he felt like, oh, I'll turn it on when the game gets here. And, we had a lot of conversations. We had a lot of go out, eat a burger, and I listened a lot. You can find out a lot about a young guy by what he's not saying, but what he is saying, and find out where he's at, find out what's on his mind, find out what kind of background he's coming from. We even try to, in a small degree, find out about their parents. Parents are very involved anymore. But I think that to really understand a guy like you're talking about, that you have to keep the communication lines open. And I think you have to lay the groundwork and let him know where that point is to where it's unacceptable. And again, he has to have consequences. All the good ones need consequences as well. The guys that are just average guys. And I've had, when I was at Harbor, I had 16 kids sign in 6 years. So, you're dealing with a lot of egos there. And the egos come from mom and dad usually, or their handler. I had kids with handlers, and want to see the stats after the game, and stuff like that. So I think the biggest thing is you got to have a communication line with that guy, and you got to win him over, but he's got to know that he can trust you. Those guys that are really good, so many people are trying to snatch off him, and family members, and it's crazy. Even at the high school level, guys can leech on, and people who do not have his best interest, a lot of times that's who they leech on to, and then things go south. So I think they need to be very upfront, and I think they need to be coached. And I don't think they are coached any less, maybe different than that other guy that he can handle. He can, he's not been spoon-fed all his life.
Well, you bring up a good point that in that sort of situation as a coach, and I'm sure you've had this before, where you're the first person to actually almost challenge them in a way. You're the first person to sort of like come at them for it, right? And you got to be that guy sometimes, right?
Yes, for sure.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I think that a lot of times, and I think that IAU is a good thing if you get into a good organization. I think that it can be a positive for the kid, not only as an AAU player, but as coming back into the high school.
Mm-hmm.
I think there has to be a support system there in order for them to maximize and to understand what the end goal is for these guys. They get told so many times things that are unrealistic. And, I always give them this. My son just is finishing up his 10th year of pro ball in Europe. And, he weighed 153 pounds out of high school and had one scholarship offer. And he's making more money in a month now than I'm making a year. And it's just the fact that he was able to see through certain things, maybe because his dad kind of had a thumb on him, and was making sure that he went down the right path. But these guys that are really good, Coach, they want people to be real to them. At the end line, they want them to be real because there's too many other guys around them, and they know it. They know who they are. They know at the end, they may not accept it at first.
Yeah.
But at the end line, they're going to come back and say, hey, I appreciate it, Coach.
Yep.
You may not be their favorite, but they're going to appreciate you.
Yeah. I think that's a really good point, that you're going to maybe be the one that challenges them when they're 14, 15, 16, but then they'll come back to you when they're, 26, 27, 28 and be like, Coach, thank you. And like,
100%.
exactly. And that's when you're like, yep, now you know what I was saying all those years. But it's hard. It's hard for teenagers, like it's you got to see, I think, where you expect them to be, or where they're going to be, and knowing that you're going to have to kind of challenge them a little bit and work with them as they're teenagers.
Where they really have a problem is they think they can snap their fingers and it can happen. Well, maybe a half a dozen in my 60 years have I seen that, like a Jordan or, a LeBron, or there's others that could go out there and just do it. But, hey, these kids need the guidance, these good ones, just like the ones that are sitting on the bench.
Yep.
They probably need more guidance. And I don't think that you can attack them. A lot of times as high school coaches, if we're coaching one of those good ones, sometimes we let our ego get in the way. And, when you're dealing with those guys, you got to put your feelings aside with them and let them really see who you are, and let them know that you are in their corner, but they are going to do what needs to be done in order for them to be a part of your team. Yeah. You got to be able, coach, to walk away.
It's a hard thing to learn sometimes, but I'm not disagreeing with you. Yeah.
100%.
Yeah. Coach, you mentioned about sometimes with that particular situation I brought up that there's different situations in play with parents and with maybe just members of the community, extended family, what have you. And of course, that's always a challenge that a coach is going to have. So when you're trying to get maximum effort out of a player, as we talked about, you may be doing things that they've never experienced before, which could then in turn lead to some pushback or some conversations that parents might want to have. How have you navigated those conversations with those parents who are expressing their concerns or taking disagreement with what you're trying to do with their player?
I've always had a really much of an open door policy. Mm-hmm. I think that the best way to get through the parents is through their kid, their son or their daughter. And, that is a great buffer a lot of times with a parent. Sometimes, the kid may not agree with what is going on as far as the way he is being coached or pushed, however it is that you want to call it. But I've always been able to sit down and explain to them what my intentions are and what my goals are for their son. And I've been very fortunate in that degree. I've not had, and I'm a high octane guy, mm-hmm. but I've not had a lot of problems with parents. I mean, we all have had problems with a few, but trust is so important, Coach. And I mean, it's so important in today's world with the AAUs and all the other, again, people that reach out to these guys and want to persuade them to follow them or train with them or anything like that. But I've always had good relationships with trainers and, I think trainers are good if used right. But I've just always, I've usually beat the parent to the point of them asking me to meet with them. I usually ask if I can meet with them. So I beat them to the punch if I see a problem coming our way and, you want to head it off before it gets to a problem where it affects your team.
Yeah, I like that a lot, that if you can anticipate things and kind of be proactive on it. I think it also, what it does is it shows your own investment, as a coach about like, this is important. I'm recognizing this as a problem. Let's have this conversation now, because it's a lot easier, I think, to have that conversation proactively than getting caught on your heels by somebody like a parent or somebody trying to come after you like that. I think that just logically makes sense.
Well, if you're proactive, it really cuts down on the issues that you have as a coach. Social media will rear its ugly head sometimes. And, we're very careful. Our staff is very careful with checking social media. And what these young guys don't understand is they put something out there. When these guys start being recruited, the first thing these colleges and JUCOs and whoever else is recruiting them, they go right to their social media. I tell them when they come to school, I'm the last person they come and see. They go to the principal, they go to the counselors, they'll walk in the hall, and they want to find out again, with them not sugarcoating it, on what kind of character is this guy? Is he a character or a character? I say, and it's something that you have to talk about over and over and over. And some get it early, some get it late, and some don't get it at all. I've got a young guy right now that was a heck of a talent, and things didn't work out the way he thought it should, and he's sort of struggling in life right now. But hopefully he'll get it straightened out.
Yeah, no, that's great, Coach. Moving towards kind of a little bit more on the X's and O's side. When we think about, we'll start on the offensive end. We talked a little bit ago about, fake hustle and things of that aren't quite maximizing effort. When you think about what you try to get offensively or what you try to run offensively, what needs to happen from a maximum effort standpoint for your offense to run the way that you want it to?
Well, I think that, everybody, whatever it is, motion offense, whatever it is that you run, I think if you went to 10 gyms and they were running the same offense, you would basically see the same thing. But I call it details. We run a little bit of the Gonzaga motion, where there's a lot of pick and rolls and roll ups. I think, to me, guys who are giving maximum effort offensively are setting good screens, setting themselves up to get screened. At the little things that you do allow me to understand and look in film that you are maximizing your abilities to run our offense and try to score off our offense. Anybody can do the big things. I've always said that. It's the little things that are hard to coach. And you say, well, why are they hard to coach? Because you have to be very consistent in your practices on what's expected. Yeah. Because if you don't, and if you're not, they'll go back to being the easy out, whatever the easiest way for them to, in their mind, score. That's what they're going to try to do. But what they don't understand is, especially in tournament time, I had a coach tell me one time, the rim gets smaller and the defense gets better. And you have to be ready to use the little things in order to make big things happen. So, setting people up, setting the correct type of screen, reads, those are telling me that we're maximizing what we're doing. Defensively, it's playing through screens. So many times you'll see kids get hit, even at the NCAA right now. You'll see guys get screened and they'll just quit playing just for that split second. They'll stand up and they'll look around. They won't communicate.
Yeah.
I think defensively, if you're communicating and you are aware of everything that's going on, I think here again, I think you're maximizing your defense by doing the little things. And you've heard this, I'm sure, a quiet gym's a losing gym.
One of my favorite sayings, Coach. Yes.
It's really hard, Coach, now to get kids to communicate because they don't have to. They have a phone in their hand, and everything that they want is right there in their palm. They do not have to speak to anybody. And you beat yourself up as a coach. And then one of my young assistants goes, we're in talking, and he goes, Coach, he said, everything these guys want, everything that matters to them is in the palm of their hand. And, I thought, wow, hadn't thought about that. So they don't have to communicate with anybody.
Yeah.
They want a cheeseburger, they order it. I think, to me, and I'm being redundant here, but it's the little things that maximize your offense, the little things maximize your defense, whatever those things are, whatever the little things you feel like as a coach are important in order for your offense or your defense to maximize their talent.
Coach, with the idea of maximizing effort, I know one of the things that I've personally kind of grappled with, and I'm sure many coaches have as well, is the idea that we just want to maximize every single thing. We want everything to be executed as perfectly as it possibly can be, and we want to have, every screen set perfectly, every shot selection, every cut look perfectly. How do you kind of manage when a player is giving their all, but sort of not, they're just not executing the way that they need to? How does that conversation go when like, all right, this player's really giving me everything they got, but they're hitting the wall, or the shots aren't going in, or it's things just don't seem to be quite clicking for them?
Well, I feel like I call it pushing the wall down, actually. I think that so many times the easiest out for a coach is to say, oh, he can't do it. Well, you may be at a small school like I'm at, and this is all you got. You don't have that guy sitting there that's on the freshman team waiting to step up there and do it. Yeah. So, I mean, Coach, I just keep expecting performance. Mm-hmm. And I'd never give up on that. I just don't. I will my way a lot of times. And I know that sounds so crazy, but I just truly believe that the more that kid believes that what's going on, and the more that you have a relationship with him, that he'll push that wall down for you. And, I think that we limit ourselves. I think we have our minds sometimes. We say to ourselves, it can't be done. Unless you're dead, I think things can be done. Can they be done to perfection? Probably not. But I think there can be a accountability there that can be sufficient enough for you to be successful and for them to see it. And all they have to do is just see a little bit of success in order to try to go to the next level with it.
Sure. I think that it's really nice that you mentioned that about, just those little victories, and when even those ones are ones that show progress to whatever that particular goal is. So no, that's really good. You just mentioned the word accountability, and I think that every coach would love a team that holds each other accountable. I think that that's a great way also to give maximum effort. So I wanted to ask you, what do you expect from your players, or what do you tell your players in terms of holding one another accountable, so that they're holding each other accountable for making maximum effort?
I think that's a learned effort, Coach. I think that's a learned behavior. I think coming into a new program, you've kind of got to get a feel on who you feel like that may be able to do that, and people will recognize, his teammates will recognize that he's the guy that he's bought into this. And, you're right. When you can get high school kids to hold each other accountable, that's a special group. So many times nowadays, you'll hear kids, well, he's my friend. I don't want to hurt his feelings. And, you have to talk to them and try to make them understand that this is not something that's going to hurt their friendship. This is something that's going to help them with their basketball, with their basketball team, with just life. Is if you can get them to hold each other accountable. And I think that's one of the hardest things now in today's athlete that there is accountability for your teammate. I'm not for sure there's anything any more tough to overcome, is to get these guys to understand that if they can ever get past that point of, I'm afraid he's going to be mad at me, or I don't want to hurt his feelings, or he's my friend. It's not about that. It's about learning how to work with people and having expectations of the guy beside you. And then when you can do that, the accountability begins you begin to see more and more of accountability. Plus, the more you invest, the harder it is to give in. If you invest and I guess make yourself accountable, then I think recognition from your team and your teammates and your coaches makes it easier for them to understand what accountability has become.
Yeah, I'm totally with you on the accountability piece. I think it's very difficult in a lot of regards to really get that from high school players in particular, to hold each other accountable and really kind of get after one another, but know that it's out of a place of friendship. You know, I kind of joke that if you are really friends with each other, you should be pushing them to be the best person that they can be. I think a couple times it clicks, but a lot of times, like you said, like it's a hard, because we think, oh, they're going to be mad at me in that moment, like you said. But it sounds like that is something that you really believe on. And so, like you've mentioned before, if it's something you consistently keep bringing up, then hopefully there'll be some success that the players kind of have with it. And even if it's just a little bit of success, holding each other accountable, it seems like something that you are still going to, celebrate in its own way.
Yes, 100%. And I think that it's like culture, and it's like that one game that changes your program and takes it to another level. Once your players understand that it's a part of the process of culture, and they do have success on the floor, whether it be small or big, it becomes a lot easier to obtain, for sure.
Yeah. One of the situations that you probably run into from time to time is you have players who, they're playing club, they're playing AAU, maybe they have their own skills trainer and everything. Do you have conversations with those players who are gonna maybe in the off season go and do their AAU and club? Do you have those conversations about, hey, the amount of effort that you're giving here, make sure that you're continuing that there? What's kind of that level of accountability that you kind of have with your players? What are those conversations like about their effort elsewhere when they're not in your gym?
I tell them it's kind of like this. There's always someone watching.
Yeah.
Whether or not we want to acknowledge that or not. And we talk about, again, if you sort of ask them what their goals are, and that's how I sort of go about it. I ask them, what are your goals for your AAU summer? What are you wanting to get out of this? And then we go into the effort and what it means. I knew a young guy that Indiana State seen him make 3 threes, and he was giving great effort, and they offered him a scholarship. Now, he didn't last, but that kind of play, that he got their attention. And because of that, and because of his effort, and because of him, they just seen him play one half. And I mean, he was a good player, but did they miss on him? Probably so. But he made an impression, and I talk to him all the time about making sure that you make the right impression. And it's very hard to encourage them or to have them give effort the same as they do for you, because again, you're talking about expectations, and when you start playing AAU, it's a more of a me deal and a lot of times, not all the time, but it's something that I keep them aware of.
Yeah.
And when I get them back, I don't want to have to retrain them. So throughout the spring and the summer, we're always asking, how's your effort? And then I'll make a phone call if I have to make sure that they're still traveling down the path that they will be successful in.
Yeah. Yeah. I like the idea of, talking about their goals and talking about, what is it you're going to do when you get to AAU and just kind of staying in touch that way. I think that's really good. Before we hit our concluding segment here, Coach, that wanted to give you an opportunity to kind of share a little bit of, I guess, the success stories and kind of what this looks like. So if a coach is out there really instilling the culture and the players are bought in about maximum player effort and players giving their all, what could they expect to see in an ideal situation with that player when they walk in the door as freshmen? And then what type of player or person would they be when they're walking down that graduation line their senior year?
Well, I feel like they'll see someone that has become aware of what's going on every day. So many times these guys, they just sort of move through the day. I would like to think that they're going to be responsible. They're going to care about how they look, how they act, and they'll always know that no matter where they're at, they're always making a difference. And I would like to think that when you get through here playing for Coach Scott Bowlin, that you can kind of say, I made it. And you're going to be, that in your life that you're going to be successful. And I'm very, very fortunate. I have so many success stories, probably I have as many failures as I do success, but I'd like to think from my standpoint that there's a lot more success stories out there than failures, but they're going to hold themselves accountable, and they're going to end up doing the right thing. A little side note to that, about 2016, I was really thinking about stepping away from it. I had maximized what I could give the kids. I'm going to stay in this, Coach, as long as I can make a difference. And as long as I can feel like that I'm getting a positive response from our players and everyone around our program. I love doing this. I love to compete. But I just hired a young coach, and he's now a head coach at a 5A school here in Arkansas. And we were playing in a national tournament in Missouri, and we got beat. And he came in my office, and the 26-year-old guy slapped my desk, and he goes, Coach, I didn't come here to lose. He said, you got to change. He said, you got to change the way you do things, the way you go about your everyday with these kids. He said, these kids want to see who you are. And Coach, I listened. And from that moment on, social media became a part of my life, my professional life. Getting to know kids better than I already was, it has become a bigger part of my life. These guys, to get the maximum effort, man, you got to spend time with them. Mm-hmm. You got to sit on the side of the fence watching the girls' softball game, talking about something that they're interested in. They play all these video games and stuff. I've always said I'm one of those guys that I know a little about nothing, but I can talk about anything. And from that point on, for some reason, because I trusted that guy, because I brought him in, I really listened to what he was telling me. And I've been having fun ever since. Thank goodness I listened to the young guy.
No, that's phenomenal. That's great. Thanks for sharing that, Coach. Coach, to wrap up, there's a couple questions that I ask every guest, so we're going to go ahead and start with this first one here. I know that you have a lot for this question that I'm sure you can choose from, but what is a coaching moment of yours from your career that you think others listening would be able to learn from?
I'm winning in 2009. I'm sitting there in front of about 8,000 people, and we're fixing to win our first state championship of the school that I was at ever. And my best friend's sitting in the second chair beside me. And I look at him, and there's like 40 seconds left. And I said, Coach, I don't feel any different. I thought I was supposed to feel a certain way. And he said, I was just sitting there thinking about the same thing. And I think the reason I tell you that is this: enjoy the moment, because in a moment it can change.
Yeah.
And I just never think it's about you, because if you do, you'll fail. It's going to be about those kids, whether they be young ladies or young guys, and just enjoy the ride. Getting to the top, you think is great, but it wasn't getting to the top that I enjoyed. It was the journey that I went through for 22 years to get to that point. I was 22 years in before I won my first state championship. And I just think that we have to have humility, and we need to give credit where credit's due. Build your assistants up. Let them do their job. Believe in them. If you don't believe in them, don't hire them. But let them do their job. And you know what? At the end of the day, you got to believe that you got to be okay with yourself. And I think if anyone listens to this podcast, you might not even put it out there, but just enjoy it.
Yeah.
Because at any moment, anything can happen and could forever change your life. So that's it. Just enjoy it. My goodness, we have the greatest job in the world, and we have one of the most influential jobs in the world, because we're changing people's lives. And I say there's 3 phases of coaching, and I think we all go through it. One, the first few years, it's about you, and you're trying to if you really want to be successful. Some coaches don't want to be that way, or they don't want to put the effort in.
Mm-hmm.
But you're putting your name out there, and you're doing all these different things and meeting all these different people. And then once you reach that point, then the next phase is where it sort of becomes about you. And then there's a lot of breakdown with relationships, and just how you go about your daily coaching. And then where I'm at now, it's about if I can share something that can keep someone from making the same mistake that I made, or maybe something that will help them and keep them from going down a path that they get into a pothole. It's about everybody but me now. And I just enjoy coaching.
Yeah, no, that's really well spoken, and I know I've been in that trap myself about it being about me and having to kind of look myself in the mirror. I think a lot of young coaches, we kind of go through that part, and then once we're able to recognize it and make those changes, that's truly special. So that's really well said. Coach, you really kind of eloquently sort of wrap things there, but I do give every guest what I call my 60-second soapbox. It's your platform to get out kind of a final thought, a closing message, or just a closing idea that you want to leave the listeners with. I know you just did such an eloquent job just now, but I'm going to go ahead and give you the floor anyway, Coach, to kind of take it away on your 60-second soapbox. Go ahead, Coach.
Create young people that you'll be proud of. And you do that by example. And it's a walk that a lot of people choose not to go. They can't walk it, but it's easy to talk it. And I think that if you can get past yourself, as we've already said, and recognize that this world needs good young coaching leaders, and it needs to be about the kid. It needs to be about the player. And you're going to get paid on the end of the month or whenever it is you get paid. But for a short moment, we can make such a great impact on not just the kids that we coach, but the kids that are in the hallways. And we can make an impact on just the everyday student, just from the fact of the way we walk and the way we hold ourselves and the way we can hold ourselves accountable. And I am so blessed and so thankful that if I hadn't won a game in 38 years, I'm not going to tell you I would be happy. But I think that I have had ups and downs like every other coach in America. But I can tell you this, I've never woke up one time and dreaded going to work, because I knew that I had a chance to make a difference every day.
Yeah, that's great. And I think that when we can merge both of those and our love of the game and our love of coaching, but also our love of just working with people and building young men and young women, how can you not wake up every day and be excited for work? So I'm right there. I'm right there with you. Coach Bowlin, I want to thank you for spending some time talking about your program, talking about maximum effort, and just talking really about what coaching means to you and the advice that you've had to share over your years of coaching. I really appreciate it, and I know our guests do too. So I want to say thank you for spending some time. Good luck going forward. I know we talked about how crazy this past year was off air. Hopefully everything kind of calms down and you're able to have a normal season, and best of luck, and hopefully it's a successful one, Coach. Thank you.
Thank you so much, and appreciate you having me on. I hope I didn't sound too silly out there today.
I don't think so. Thank you, Coach, and thank you all for listening. This was another edition of the Basketball Teacher Podcast. Thank you guys so much. We'll see you guys next.
Thank you for listening to another edition of the Basketball Teacher Podcast. Make sure to connect with us on YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter, or reach us directly through email at basketballteacherpodcast@gmail.com. Take care, be safe, and we'll see you next time.